Chapter 51, The Prohibition Amendment. The soldiers who came home from Europe in 1919 had exciting things to tell. They had been to Paris and seen fancy nightclubs, stunning buildings, and splendid boulevards. Some bragged about their heroism in battle, which was understandable. You had to be tough or lucky to be a survivor. A few came home without arms or legs. Some didn't want to talk about the war at all. The returning soldiers were surprised to find that America had changed in the year they'd been gone. They noticed one thing right away. It had to do with beer and liquor. During the war, it was considered unpatriotic to drink alcohol. Beer is made from grain, and grain was needed to feed soldiers. Now that the war was over, many people wanted to put an end to all liquor drinking. It could make the world a much better place, they said. The Constitution does not give Congress the right to tell people what they may eat or drink. If someone wants to drink poison, only a state can make laws to try to keep him from doing so. Many people say that alcohol can be a kind of poison. No one disagrees that drinking too much is harmful. Drunkenness was a special problem in early America. Most drinking was done in saloons where women were not admitted. Some men took their paychecks, went to a saloon, drank up, and then went home drunk with no money left for their families. Reformers decided to attack the problem. Some of them believed in temperance, which means moderation. Others believed in prohibition, which means outlawing all drinking. Some women's groups fought for prohibition. Several religious groups, especially Methodists and Baptists, joined the battle. Many states became dry. In a dry state, it was against the state law to buy or sell liquor. Some people wanted to go further. They wanted the whole nation to be dry. A constitutional amendment was needed. It was the progressive era. People thought that laws could help make people perfect or close to it. It took about 20 years to get the 18th Amendment passed, but finally it was done. The Prohibition Amendment became law in 1920. The amendment made it illegal to sell liquor anywhere in the United States. Most people thought it was a very good idea. All but 2 states passed the Prohibition Amendment. After the Prohibition Amendment was passed, Congress needed to provide for its enforcement. This was done with a law called the Vol.C Act. Prohibition didn't make it illegal to drink or even to buy liquor. It just made it illegal to sell it. It didn't work. Many people who wanted to drink kept drinking. Although per capita alcohol consumption did fall during Prohibition years. Per capita is Latin and it means by heads or per person. In other words, the total amount of liquor consumed in the U.S. divided by the number of people in the U.S. showed there was less alcohol drunk during Prohibition than before. But there was a problem. Many new kinds of people began drinking. Some people, especially some women and young people who had not drunk before, decided to try it. Prohibition wasn't supposed to do this, but in some crowds it made drinking fashionable. Maybe it had to do with disillusionment after the war. Writers were calling this a lost generation. People weren't really lost, but they were confused about right and wrong. Since selling liquor was now a crime, gangsters took over that activity. People who sold liquor were called bootleggers. Some of them stuck flasks inside high boots. Ships running whiskey from foreign suppliers to coastal ports were called rum runners. Illegal bars where drinks were sold were called speakeasies. If people spoke loud and the police heard them, the bar would be raided. So they spoke easy. No one expected it, but Prohibition made crime a big business in the United States. Americans learned that some kinds of prohibition must be done by persuasion and education. Laws and force don't always work. Another amendment was needed to get rid of the Prohibition Amendment. The 21st Amendment was passed in 1933. It ended what was a well-meaning experiment. The experiment had failed. But how do you get people to stop doing something that isn't good for them? Do the lessons of prohibition apply to drugs? Some people say we should make it legal to buy drugs, then criminals could not earn big money selling drugs. Others say that would encourage people to use drugs. What do you think? Okay, if you want to pause the video here, you could read this green section to yourself and check out these photos.